What's going on, all my haunted followers? So, this is my story about Bear Cove Park in Hingham, Massachusetts. So, this location, for me, I was very wary about it because of the supposed background, if you will. When you have so many negative things happen, with the satanic rituals and the two murders of these people, you gotta walk on eggshells basically in a location like this because you don't know what you're dealing with, so to speak. So we had left around 10 o'clock, and it was about an hour drive to the park, and we finally get there, and before we had left, we actually had Googled map a location so we could find those bunkers. Obviously, with all these stories combined, we were frightened. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, we were scared that we might run into something, whether it be paranormal or, run into like a cult or something. So as we're walking through these woods, I started getting a sensation, and the only way to describe it was almost as if we were being watched. And both of us felt uneasy. It was I can't describe the feeling of maybe being extremely nervous, and almost like we were something bad was about to happen. That's the best way I can describe it. So we finally find the bunkers, and it really wasn't what I expected. I mean, there was graffiti all over the bunkers and everything, but so we sat up against a pillar, and we started doing an EVP session, asking the obvious questions: if anybody was there, if they'd like to speak with us. And that uneasy feeling came over me again. Just like I felt like something bad was going to happen. So, like I always do, I replay the EVPs, and we get right away a growl, and it was a very sinister growl, animal-like, almost like something wanted us to know that it was there. Anytime you get an EVP like that, it's a weird feeling. Obviously, something is there that we can't see that wants to harm us, and it's intentionally trying to scare us. With any type of demon or something like that, it's just trying to get us out of that location. And we were definitely scared. I'm not going to lie. But we pressed on, so we stopped the EVP session, and I had the EMF detector next to me, and this was an old, I think it's a Gauss meter, if I remember correctly. Those old gray box EMF detectors, and the only way it would work is if you were pressed down on a side button, and that's the only way it would read EMF. But the EMF detector started screaming. Well, that's the noise I call it. It started screaming and reading 10 milligauss, if I remember correctly. And it only lasted a couple seconds, which told me that something was either trying to communicate with us or something was trying to manifest. And I just remember that, so this was in summertime, and it was warm out. It was in the 70s. I mean, it's night. It's not too cold, and the ambient temperature around us was dropping significantly, and I could feel it in the air, that chill in the air. So it definitely felt like something was trying to manifest. And all of a sudden, we both heard what sounded like twigs were breaking from behind us, and I could actually hear someone walking up behind me. And that sensation that someone is behind you. I turn around, and there's nobody behind me. So I turned to my friend to say something, and I heard in my left ear a growl. And I'm talking, it almost was like a dog. When a dog growls, it was right in my ear. And I obviously I got scared. I jumped back, almost toppling over my friend. And he looked at me, and he didn't hear it, obviously. So at that moment, I really thought that I was the one that was under attack. And I started getting nervous, and I said, I think it's time that we leave. Because something didn't want us there, obviously. And, it was just the both of us. And if something was going to try to attack us, we needed to get out of there. So as a general rule of thumb for me, I always say that, you should never run or panic or fear. So I kind of gathered myself and I said, let's just leave. So we started walking through the path that we had found, and I get goosebumps just talking about this part. The wind just randomly picked up, I remember, and it was this unbelievable wind that almost was about to blow us over. We're both thinking maybe it was just a random gust of wind, but you how do you put that together? I mean, random gust of wind and a tree fell right in the path that we were walking in. And then the wind died down, and we both simultaneously heard that growl again, but it was almost all around us at that point. So we both did what we always say we shouldn't do, and we started running through the path, and it sounded like something was running along the trail with us, like breaking branches as it went through. And I'm looking to my left, he's looking to his right, and it's almost like it was on both sides of us, and we're picking up speed, and we come to a stop, and realizing that we kind of ran off in a different direction than we came, so we kind of got turned around at that point. And it was almost like whatever was chasing us meant for this to happen. It's only the best way I can describe it. So we turned around and we started running back the way we came, and all of a sudden we're back at the bunker location. So we realized that there's two paths, and the path that we ran down was not the path we were supposed to. So we sat down for a second to catch our breaths. And mind you, the only thing we have at this point, and it's dark, is flashlights. So we're shining around the forest, and there's a lot of trees around us. There's miles of forest around us at that point. And we sat down on the ground to catch our breath. And all of a sudden, my friend, out of nowhere, just screams bloody murder. And it completely freaks me out. And I look at him, and he's holding his back in emotion. He just got hurt. So he's like, it felt like someone just took a match and stuck it into my back. So I go to lift his shirt. He goes to lift his shirt, and there are 3 scratch marks on his back. And at this point, I know that we are now dealing with a demon. At this point, I knew that we were in danger and that we needed to get out of there. So I told him, let's get up and let's run. And he stops, and he just kind of looks at me. And he has a smile, and the only way I can describe it is this grin. And he sits down, and he has there's some pebbles on the ground, and he starts picking them up and putting them in his hand. I'm like, dude, we need to go now. So I'm looking at him, and he has these pebbles in his hands, and he takes one, and he doesn't throw it at me hard, but hard enough where it hit my leg. And I was like, and I'm thinking, is this kid really joking around at this time? So I'm like, dude, let's go. Like, stop joking around. And he takes another one, he throws it at me. And this whole time he's doing this, he's just staring blankly at me, at my face, with this smile. So at this point, I know there is something up with him. And I'm freaking out because I don't know what to do. And I was calling his name. I was like trying to get him to come to. And I started walking towards him, and he stood up, and he swung at me. So I was able to kind of dodge it. Something in my head at that point told me that I needed to get him away from that location. So with all my strength, and he's a much bigger kid than me, I grab him and I push him as hard as I can towards a trail. And he kind of tumbles forward and then falls. And he fell on the ground, and I think that's when he kind of like came to. And his first instinct was to be extremely angry, because he had no idea what was going on at that point. And he's sitting on the ground. I'm trying to tell him, we need to get up and go, and I think he's just trying to gather his thoughts, and he's basically realizing something had taken over him. And he's kind of looking up at me, and his eyes just widen, and he yells, "Dude, behind you." So I turn around, and my flashlight can only make out a little bit of this black mist, and it started to form into some type of shape. It was a human shape, but it was huge. It was almost like the best way I can describe it, if your shadow is hitting a wall from behind a light. It was massive, and he gets up and just starts running, and I do the same thing. So again, I start running with him, and we're running full sprint back to the car. It's not something that we are in our power at that time could deal with. So when we got back to the car, he's driving and I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and I'm trying to catch my breath, and so is he. And we realized that we had forgotten the voice recorder on the ground when this commotion happened, as well as the EMF detector. And I literally was like, you know what, I can't leave those things behind. I mean, a $50 voice recorder and a $60 something EMF detector. I'm like, I'm not leaving that out there. I'm like, I have to go back and get it. So he was reluctant, but he said, yeah, let's go get it. I think most people in that situation would have just totally said, no, we're not going to go back to the equipment, and left. But it was more than that. It was just my equipment, and I wasn't going to leave it out there. So we walked back, extremely alert and extremely reluctant, but we get back to the bunker, and we find my EMF detector and my voice recorder, and we pick it up, and we walk back to the car with no incident. And it was recording this whole time. I forgot that I had left it on record, and you can hear the entire commotion of the incident. And then after we had left, you could hear us kind of running away. On the voice recorder, we heard this really scratchy voice come over and say, "I'll get you next time." What was even more frightening of the incident was the voice recorder stopped at 66 minutes and 6 seconds. 666. And that blew my mind even more. Whatever was there had taken over my friend. Its intent was to harm us, or even worse. And I will never go back to that park ever again. Guys, I hope that you enjoyed that video. Bear Cove Park definitely has some history, and most of the history is negative. I would have to say that is one location that I will never visit, simply because, again, I think there is definitely something possibly demonic there. And with all the negative history and all the negative things that happen there, I wouldn't doubt that whatever is there is still there.